Welcome to the very first episode of Jesus, Coffee, and Wine. I am so excited you're here with me, and I can't wait to jump right in. So, this first episode includes an interview with a very dear friend of mine, Nanette Rivera. She is an incredible friend, an amazing mom and wife, and sister and daughter, and all the things that we all aspire to be as women. She has not only inspired me, but I know she inspires so many people around her. She's full of energy, full of knowledge, and she just has such a passion to learn and grow and be the best she can be in order to love those around her well. And I really can't think of anything better than having somebody like her in my life. And I'm so excited to share her with you all. I will say that I have decided to title this episode The F Word. And before you get your panties in a bunch, um, yep, I said it. I will say that I am not referencing that word. I'm referencing friendship, faith, and forgiveness. Those three words can be beautiful and they can be super challenging. So we will dig right into that with Nanette, and here we go.
Yay!
We're doing it. We're here. Yay.
We are.
I want to introduce my first guest. I feel like a little kid.
I know, so do
excited.
I am so excited and so nervous all at the same time.
I feel like you're a celebrity and you're like
Stop.
gracing me with your presence.
Stop.
Okay, so Nanette Rivera, thank you for joining us.
Thank you for having me.
This is our first episode ever of Jesus, Coffee, and Wine. And
Which
I
just want to say
What?
that I'm honored.
Oh.
I'm like so honored that I get to be the first one.
Well, I'm honored to have you here. So I couldn't think of anybody else that I would want to launch this with because, well, we'll get into all of our history. But before we start, I have to say, I don't know. My husband said to me tonight, "Do you have wine?" And I was like, "What?" And he was like, "For your podcast tonight." And I was like, "I didn't think about that." He's like, "I thought that was the whole thing." I was like, "Well, I mean, kind of, but I feel like I would be spillsy over my laptop. So like maybe as I get more used to what I'm doing, or who knows, maybe mid recording, he'll show up with a glass. I'm not sure. I might need it. Maybe I'll text him. I don't know where this is going to go." So here we are.
Hey.
Yeah.
We'll keep it flexible. We'll keep it flexible. So
yeah, I mean, if your husband or mine want to show up with a glass of wine, I don't think we'd turn them away. I mean, leave the wine and walk away, but whatever. Okay.
Yeah.
Anyways, I really felt like what I wanted to focus on today is faith and friendship. And, you know, it's one of those things that it can be a heavy topic, but I just feel like I have looked to you over the years as not just a friend, but as a mentor. I've come to you in times of desperation and grief and sorrow and sadness. And I've also been able to celebrate with you during the highs. And I know, or I hope that I've been able to be there in that same way for you and with you. And so I think over the most recent years, I've had some friendships that I've lost, that I've had to grieve, that and I've had some friendships develop that are exciting. But through it all, there's these threads, and there's very few of people in my life that are friendships that formed years ago that have just been constants, and people that haven't walked away, and people that have stayed even when it was hard. And you are at the top of that list for me. I don't want to cry yet.
I know. We can't start off crying.
No tears.
Because you know crying is my superpower.
Same, which is part of why we're such good friends.
Exactly.
But, okay, let's go back to the beginning. Our beginning.
Yeah.
We met in let's see, Mimi was born in 2011. That's my daughter.
Yeah.
And I started going back to the church where we met around that time. So I feel like we became friends like maybe 2012, 2013.
Yeah.
2012.
It was
Because
like transitioning 2012, 2013.
yeah, and we started together in a Bible study,
Yes, we did.
small group,
Yeah.
women's
Yeah.
small group at my house in my former
Yeah.
life.
Mm-hmm.
And we were studying the book of Esther.
Yes, we were.
And we just formed this like beautiful friendship.
Yeah.
And I remember I have to tell this story because one of the first like interactions we had as friends, I think like paints a really good picture for the conversation I want to have.
Yeah.
I don't know if I think you remember this because I've brought this up multiple times to you, but we were doing a play at our church, and it was at the
Yes.
end of a show, and we were leaving, and I don't remember why, like if we were talking about getting food or coffee or something after, but we all had babies, so I don't think we were going anywhere. Our kids were
Yeah.
little, but
Yeah,
you
they
were like, "Girl,
were.
I got to go home and make out with my husband." And I was like, "What? I'm sorry. What?" And you were like, "Yes,
Yeah.
I gotta go home and
Yeah.
make out with my husband." And I was so confused because that just wasn't my experience at the time
Yeah.
in marriage.
Yeah.
And I remember
Yeah.
walking away from that thinking, like, how cool. Also, the freak was what?
I know.
Like,
I know.
do you remember
Listen,
that?
I do. I mean, wouldn't put anything past me. Like that stage of my life was so like chaotic because we had two
Yeah.
kids under 2, and so like that was just a whole experience on its own. And so there's a lot of things I like tell my husband. It's like it feels like a cloud, like it's just a blurry cloud. I remember it, but I just kind of don't
Yeah.
remember all the details. But I do remember in that season of my life that's exactly where my husband and I were. And so like we were at that stage of our life where we were really like healing and like coming off of I think that was like year 5 for us. And so, and year 5, no, that was year 6 for us because year 5 wasn't the greatest.
Yeah.
And so we were
Been there.
we were coming out of that, and we were charting, new territory with,
Yeah.
navigating life in our hometown, but minus all the people that we grew up around and that we were used to seeing all the time. And so like when you and I met, I was in such a season of like, I need to learn how to make friends, and I have to make friends. And, because I was so comfortable in my little bubble of family that I didn't really know anything outside of that. And they were all, on to the next phase of their life. And so, so I had to figure that out. And so I was very honest about everything. I thought everyone was. I was just like, yeah, that's what I'm going to go home and do.
But
like,
I love that you were just like assuming that everyone's experience was that in marriage. And I was assuming no one's experience was that. So talk about opposites. But as funny as it is, and is like, it's like this one little moment in time and this one like passing, fleeting, jokey, fun interaction as we're leaving the doors of a church. It stuck with me all these years, and it stuck with me through a really difficult time in my life, which is my divorce. And then through a season where my husband and I started dating, my husband now started dating, and then got married. And here we are. We'll be married 10 years this year, believe it or not. And I still think about you saying that. And I'm like, I would say that now. That would be like, I would say that to someone. Sorry, Joe, throwing us under the bus. But but it's that time.
Yeah.
This might be too much. See, this is, I'm not sure I should be in front of mine. When I think of those little moments with you, I smile because it had such great impact. And sometimes I think in friendships, we don't recognize in the moment how powerful even the smallest thing can be and how much we can affect each other. I just think it's so critical to like, for me, it was important for me to hang on to you because that was such a bright light and such an inspiration. Like, it's funny, but it still was something that like I hang on to this day. So the Lord used even that little tiny moment as something that I like aspire.
I'm glad you shared that because that's something that like I totally know I would have said that because I do that.
Yeah.
I mean, even
I feel
now
like you'd say that now.
Yeah. Especially now that we have teenagers. Oh yeah. I'm always trying
they
to gross
must
them
love
out.
that.
Yes. I mean, it's our goal to gross them out as much as we can. And so, but also to kind of show them that, hey, this is what marriage like really looks like. And And they see our not so perfect days. And then they see the days where, I'm just like, you haven't given me a kiss today, honey. Where's my kiss? And, and he'll come over and he'll give me a kiss. And the kids are like, get a room. And we're just like, this whole house is our room.
Yeah, I love that.
And they're like,
we
no.
pay for this whole house to be our room.
Yes.
Gabe the babe. That's your husband,
yes.
Gabe the babe. And that's a good segue. That's a good segue into how much our husbands adore each other.
Yes, they do.
Which I think is actually a really interesting story. So, and I know you remember some of this, but after my divorce, I know that Gabe struggled a little bit with just that.
Yeah.
And not because he was close with my ex-husband.
No, it was more of like, it was more of a different, it was uncharted waters for us.
Yeah.
Yeah. And
I think in the church, that's an important thing.
Oh yeah.
Not everybody deals with these things.
No. And I think in that season of our life, we were definitely more like leaning towards the understanding of how we were raised, which was, there was very clear, hard lines on all situations.
Mm-hmm.
And so for him, it just felt like he, I don't want to speak for him,
no,
but I definitely know the conversations that we had was just like, how do we do this? Everything was just kind of like, how do we like, how do we show that we still love and care, but also like, not, and I don't want to say not agree, but like, it's almost like saying like, how do we still love and care, but also like not say that we're okay with the idea of like one day. Cause I think for my husband and his perspective, there was just this thought process of like, what if this happens to us one day,
Yeah,
and
totally.
I think
it's scary.
That's a very real, like, feeling when you're walking through something like that. And so, and honestly, my heart was always just, to be available and to be there for you. And I had this overwhelming sense of a feeling that God's grace meets us in various places. And like, who am I to say that God's grace can't meet you in the moment where you were at? And that was always my understanding. I wasn't going to sit there and say, this is a moment where God's grace is not going to be here for this situation.
Yeah, and I'm so thankful for that. And I'd be lying if I wasn't still, how many years past all of that? Almost 12 years past all of that I don't still have questions about, Lord, like, there's so many Christians that will pontificate on scripture and that it's so black and white, that divorce is never okay. And that, you shouldn't marry a divorced woman, or, you're living in perpetual adultery. And I don't know. I don't have the answers other than, and this is why I wanted to bring this up. So not to throw Gabe under the bus for not supporting my remarriage, but after Joe and I got married, so just to give our listeners context, you and I stayed friends, but kind of at arm's length, because I very much was afraid to like make you feel as though I was putting you in a bad position. And I knew Gabe's issue was not a personal one. I knew that. And like I said, as the person going through it and living out this life that I never thought I'd be living out, that was really difficult for me to reconcile with also. Yeah. But at one point, you guys were moving across town from one side of town in Rochester to the other town I was in with Joe, and we had been married and we were living together. Obviously, we were married. Although I shouldn't say obviously, because we did not live together when we were first married, but that's a whole other story. That's okay for another time. Wow. You didn't know that? Okay.
I didn't know that one either.
Well, that's for another time. Anyways, so when you guys were moving, I remember being like, we can help. And I was like, maybe the guys can meet. And we showed up at your new place, and I feel like when Gabe and Joe's eyes met, it was like love at first sight.
Yes. I have to say this. We'd been hanging out, and I remember I went to your house one evening, and this was before we decided to move to that side of the city. And Joe was there, and we're all talking and stuff like that. And he's like,
did you guys come over before you moved? I thought that was when they first met. Oh, you did.
I did. Yeah. Gabe always, kindly and gently opted out of all the hangouts. And so he was just like, no, it's okay. I'll stay with the kids. And And so, but then I was like, obviously I was always over there. And so when that evening that we were all hanging out, and we were chatting, and I had told Joe the news that we were moving over to that side of the city, and he was like so excited. And I just remember his enthusiasm. He was just like, cause he didn't even know Gabe, but he just loved him. And that's just Joe. Joe just has so much and I always tell him he's like a saint. He loves the way God does. Yeah. But he just had this way about him where he was like, he's like, oh my gosh, you guys are moving to the side of the city. And he's like, I know that I can win his heart.
And he did.
He did.
It was like eyes met across the room and
He did. I think it was when he was putting up the flat screen TV over the fireplace and Gabe was just like, he knows how to do this. I don't even have to tell him how to do it. And it was just, Then we started bonding over music and it was hilarious.
Oh my gosh.
We just sat back and watched the love story unfold.
I love it. And it did. But it's I left your house that day so giddy because I was like,
yeah,
okay, I knew it. I knew they'd fall in love. And then so fast forward a little bit, the first time we went to dinner after that, Gabe did give in and we all went to dinner and we hung out at our house after.
Yeah.
And I sat and I'll never forget this. I know exactly where I was sitting. We sat in my front living room.
Yeah.
And I was like, I'm so glad we did this. I'm so glad. I remember saying to you, I hope Gabe feels comfortable. I'm not asking for him to condone divorce or understand all of the things, but to be here and just this means so much to me because you meant so much and you mean so much to me that it's important for me to feel like our friendship is safe.
Yes.
And right. So, and you said, yeah. And one of the conversations you and Gabe had, I don't know if you remember telling me this, but you were like, you can't argue with fruit.
Yes.
Do you remember saying that?
I can't. Yeah. Well, that's a saying that we have in our household and this one that we stand by. It's, we've always been of the understanding, that there will be things in people's lives, characteristics and things, that they exhibit, and people can always say things about how they live their life. And, I do these things and I'm, really good with my children and I teach them, all these stuff, but, people can talk really big. But for us, it was always the fruit that showed, that their life exemplify it. And I remember having that dinner and Gabe just literally on the way home was just like, I can't argue with fruit because you can literally see that both Joe and Katie are just in a place in their life where they're really they feel and they're experiencing the blessings of God. They're the joy that you guys had was just it was unmatched. Yeah. So that speaks a lot to what it is that you guys endured because I know your choices weren't easy. And you guys, for one thing, I will say is that you guys prayed about it. You guys talked about it. There was so much that I remember having conversations with Joe before you guys even started dating. I remember just meeting him for the first time and just having those conversations with him and just saying to myself, this is a man who really carefully considers his steps, but also carefully considers the heart of God too. And
I love that.
Yeah.
It's true. He's amazing.
Yeah.
Well, I'm just thankful that you guys were able to see that and it wasn't I had to prove it. Right. And so,
it was pretty apparent.
Yeah.
Well, you guys are very happy and you guys love each other and it just shows in your kids and everything. It's just you guys
thank you. No, we do. And I think, on a bigger scale, and I mean, I could talk about my husband all day and all night.
I know.
Adore him, but we won't. But my point is it's as believers, we walk through these things that we don't always have the answers to. And I think you and I have had really good conversations about struggling with that approach that we maybe have been accustomed to growing up in the church, which I'm using as the church, the man-made church. And what our experience was growing up and what we were taught. And we've had great conversations, like I said, talking through some of the things that we're questioning now. And, some people love to talk about they're deconstructing their faith and the deconstruction of faith. And I want to separate myself from that. I don't, that's not my experience. My experience, even in my lowest moments, have not been, I don't know what I believe. I've never, even in the moments where I really have struggled, I've never fully walked away from what I believe to be true, which is I've experienced and I know the Lord in a very intimate and personal way. And so that can't be taken away. But I think what I've had to pull apart is my understanding of who he is and exactly and his heart and his character, even though it's spelled out for us.
Yeah.
Because I've had to separate that from some of the indoctrination of the kind of churches we grew up in.
Yeah. Yeah.
I know we've had those conversations, and like, you've gone through great loss.
Yeah.
You've had multiple losses.
Yeah.
Judah, your firstborn, who you lost very tragically and unexpectedly, which I don't know how much you want to get into that, but going through the loss of Judah and then multiple miscarriages. And I've had multiple miscarriages. In those moments of darkness, when we're crying out, it's hard to not lose faith. But I think one thing you and I have in common that we've talked about is we haven't ever lost our faith, but we've certainly questioned the way in which it's played out or been taught to us. Yeah. And so all of that is connected to kind of, I didn't want to make this about my story with Joe.
Yeah.
But I do think it's a good launching pad for that conversation, because it's very much part of the foundation of like our friendship. And I think a really great example of, the ways in which we've had to walk through things with questions and not necessarily having the answers.
Yeah. I think that was one of the things that kind of united us together, was the fact that we struggled. And it's not that we struggled with the idea of having faith, but yet still being severely disappointed at the things that occurred in life. And it was one of those things where, and I don't even necessarily like fault, how we were raised and stuff like that. I am grateful for some of the stuff that I learned, being raised in the church and stuff like that. And I'm with you with the whole deconstruction thing. It's not, I'm not a huge fan of the way that some people use the idea of deconstructing, but there's a way that I can sum up all of kind of that into like one thing, is that like, I was a firm believer in God's word, but I didn't understand the impact that it had on my life, and in perspective, or in retrospect to the tragedies that I had to face. And so there was this understanding that like bad things equaled, like it was a result of bad things in your life. So there was this like, like it wasn't, and it's not necessarily that that's what was completely taught, but there was like this underlying thing that was unsaid, that if you suffered or if you went through really hard things, that maybe it was because there was something sitting in your life. And I'll never forget. I lost my firstborn son, and this because you're very much part of that healing journey. And I lost my firstborn 5 days before he was due, just out of nowhere. And it hit us like a ton of bricks. And I was angry during that season. I didn't lose faith in God, but I was angry. And there was this constant conflict of faith, and like, can I have faith and can I be angry at the same time? And like, is God mad at me for it? Or how do I like walk through this? And I'll never forget that, like, I was reading my Bible, and I remember going to the book of Matthew, and I was reading the story about the wise man and the foolish man, and how they built their homes. And the wise man built his house upon the rock, and the foolish man built his house upon the sand. And, just a little reprise there, paraphrasing of sorts.
That was great. That was great. I feel like it should be to a song.
So in that story, I remember just reading, and there was one thing that stood out to me that day. I've read that story numerous times, but that day in particular, when I was reading, and this was in the midst of my grief, the part that stood out to me was that it said the water rose and the rain came and the wind blew. And it didn't say for who, it just was for both of them. And there was just such a realization to me that I was like, okay, God, so wait, we're not promised to be like protected from the rain and from the waters and from the winds that will blow. But how we build our house will determine how we come out on the other side. And so for me, if I had to carry faith in one hand, even though I didn't fully understand and carry like my sorrow and my grief in the other, as long as I had both of them through those seasons, I knew I was going to be okay. I knew I was going to come out on the other side, but I wrestled. And
well, sure.
I don't think God's angry with us in our wrestling, you know? And so I think that was a huge part of what like really spoke to our friendship and our relationship was that I gave you space and room to wrestle, and you gave me room and space to wrestle. And we didn't like come at each other and say, Katie, you know better, you know, or you weren't like, Nanette, you know, God has a plan and a purpose for everything. You know, it was just this like sitting in the dirt, like Job sat with his friends. I'm here. I know you're angry and I just want to be with you, you know? And
it's interesting you bring up Job too, because I was just talking to a family member who I'm very close with, you know, I just talking about Job and wrestling with how, as much as we love the Lord and we trust that he is good and we know that he is good, in those moments, it is next to impossible sometimes to believe he is good and know he is good when you're sitting in the dirt, when you're sitting and holding what was supposed to be life. And so I don't have the answers for that. And I think faith very much for me and for, I think for the human experience is it's a choice. It has to be, it has to be a choice. And I think I believe it's designed that way. That doesn't make it easy. That doesn't make it, you know, something that is exciting all the time.
No.
It's difficult. I mean, when I went through my first miscarriage, I was like, hey, Lord, I trust you, because I was just, and I feel like in that season and at that time of my life, I was young. I was in my 20s. I hadn't had any children yet. And very different from your experience. I mean, it was very early in my pregnancy, but I feel like I clung to my faith. My second miscarriage was much later in life and very much a surprise all the way around for various reasons that, again, for another episode. That might be for another podcast. So many episodes. Anyways, stay tuned for that one. But I think in that season, and that was coming out of a very tumultuous season in my life in general, that is the lowest point I can recall in my faith journey, where I was like, Lord, I don't know. I don't know what to believe. I don't know who you are at this point. I don't believe in you. I know you're there. I'm not sure that anything I've believed of you at this moment, at that time, I don't think that I really was like, I don't think I can hang on to it anymore, because I was in such a dark place. Coming out of that and being where I am now, in hindsight, I don't regret that wrestling, because I think everything we go through obviously brings us ultimately closer to where he wants us and where we need to be. So that's part of why I'm going back to school and studying the Bible, because my experience growing up spiritually and in the church was always very focused on the spiritual aspect of faith. And so while that's so important, and I love my relationship with the Lord and what has very much been built on a very real experiential relational experience. I don't know. But that's been, but you know what I mean? I very much have lived that out. I feel like what has been missing my whole life is really digging into, but what does the word say? And not just let's recite Jeremiah 29:11 and take it out of context, or let's recite 1 Corinthians 13:8. Okay, love never fails, but what does it mean, and who said it, and why, and when? And extracting all of that, I think at this point in my life, that's where I want to go back to, because instead of pointing fingers and saying, well, you never taught me, so I don't know, or relying on my own understanding and just reading is difficult. So I'm excited. I'm nervous to go back to school to study, but that is why. And a lot of what I'm excited about is because of conversations we have had, because you have dug in a new way. And I'll let you talk about that, but it's incredible what you're doing.
Well, yeah, I was like you in the same cycle. It was really like a cycle that just I felt like our experiences happened, but then it felt like we kept going back in this like never ending loop of like, okay, you know, I have faith, I'm having a good day, and then it's like, oh, this is a struggle, and then it just kept going around and around, and it felt almost like there wasn't enough stability for me to move forward, and so I felt stuck in a lot of my living in a lot of my decision making, and so I had this like moment where I was just I don't even know what exactly was happening, but I just felt like I was tired.
Yeah.
Well, I was just exhausted. I was exhausted from
baseline exhaustion.
And exactly, right? That it was like a different kind of like exhaustion. Like it wasn't just the mom of three, like I'm tired. I've been up all night, but it was just, there was so much happening in my life, and not necessarily to me, but around me. And they were heavy things. And I just kept saying to myself, Lord, why does this feel so heavy? Why does this feel so heavy? And so there happened to be a girl in our church who's near and dear to my heart. I love her. She's a great friend of mine. And we were walking out of service, and we both were carrying that weight of, I'm just tired, you know? Yeah. And I asked her, I was like, you okay? And she's like, not really. And I was like, yeah, I'm not either. And so like, oh, again, that honesty, it was just like, we're not doing well. And she was just like, I just feel like I read the Bible and it just doesn't mean like what I think everyone else is saying. And I was like, I feel the same way. And I've struggled with the word, and I wrestled with it, you know, at times. And so she was just like, I think I want to study the Bible. I was like, we should do that. We're both hurting. We're both struggling. Yeah, let's just dig into the word together. Right. And so it was the most like, usually
the blind leading the blind.
Yeah, literally. We were going to be like, let's figure this out. We found this study called Search the Word. It was supposed to be a 6-week study. And we literally sat and dug into the study, and we took our time with it. Chapters that we were just like, I don't understand what this means. And we would cry through it and try and figure it out. And well, I did all the crying, you know, like we worked through it, and we just kind of like studied it. And when we got to the end, all of a sudden I realized, oh, okay, I get this now. The hard part was that we always I would open up my Bible and just be like, God, I need something from you, you know? But the scriptures weren't really intended to be like a cookie jar where we can just stick our hand in and get our like fix for the day. You know, it was meant to be something that we are supposed to process and learn, and then go back and read it again and reprocess and learn again. And it meant something to its original audience, and we needed to figure that part out first, because we just tried to fit it into our culture and our day-to-day life, and it applies, but it doesn't necessarily fit our modern day culture. And so like we have to take it back there for fully understanding. And so as I started going through that process and journey of doing that with scripture, all of a sudden all the verses that I knew growing up and I memorized growing up just started taking on a whole new light for me. And I started realizing that this walk is, although it can be coupled with experiences, which are great, it's not meant to just be, we're not meant to live from experience to experience. We have to really like take in the in-between. And the in-between is the studying and the praying and the sitting with things and wrestling with the word. It's a word that I use often. There's times where I sit with scriptures and I will not move on from them because I'm like, no, I don't fully understand this. And I'll just sit with it. And so that ended up leading me to going back to school and finishing up my Bible college degree. And now I'm pursuing my bachelor's in biblical studies too. It's like, I'm like working along the same path.
Amazing.
That, it's so cool to see that this phase of life is bringing us back together, catch ups.
For people that maybe aren't Christians or didn't grow up in the church like us, I put out a little intro for this podcast saying like, this is not a Christian podcast. My goal is to not preach, especially because I don't know much about anything, but
Don't be shy.
No, but one of the things that is important to me is that people understand that just because our conversation very much is based on our experiences in the church and faith, and we are
Absolutely.
believers. I think people that aren't believers can relate in some way to this, to the idea of faith. And if they haven't experienced that relationship with Jesus, or haven't grown up in the church, or had an opportunity to experience some of the things that we have, I think there's still something to be said for God meeting us where we are. We go to church. I am a Christian. I'm going back to school for biblical studies. Like, I don't want to minimize how important that is to me, but I do think it's important to be able to have a conversation that people can understand. This is not about pushing a religion or pushing one way of, one, what's the word I'm looking for? Here comes the 43-year-old brain fog. Perimenopause, you are not welcome here.
Actually, what I was going to say at the very beginning, like as soon as you started in about like our friendship and how it's just been like a natural one, right? It came easily for us. And because we did have that common ground. But I think there's a lot to say about friendships in adulthood right now, because it's not easy. Making friends as adults is not an easy thing.
No.
And like, taking our faith aspect, like, yes, our faith, like for people like you and I, our faith informs our decision making and a lot of our life choices, right? But we can't negate the fact that like, subscribe to the idea that we've all been designed and created, which is, obviously what we subscribe to is that we've been designed and created by, an all-knowing being, God, right? And so like that, it still doesn't take away from the fact he designed us for community, and it doesn't take away from like that's no matter who you are or what you believe or what like path of life that you're on, there's always going to be a desire and a need for community, because that is what we were made for. And so I think at the end of the day, like friendships are important. Weren't meant to do life isolated. And I've seen women come and go in many different seasons of my life. And there's some that I was sad about because they're no longer in my, like realm of, I don't know how to say it, like my orbit. Like I know they exist and they're still there, There's, some women who made lasting impacts in my life who, we don't talk every day, but then when we see each other, we just pick up right where we left off. And so I think there's a lot to be said about the dynamic of needing other people. And that's not an easy thing for most women to say, let alone, anyone. Like people don't like that sense of dependence. Like I need you in my life, or I need you to kind of like get through this season. And that vulnerability is not something that comes easy. And so while I loop everything in my life around my faith, you can't take away that dynamic of just the need for friendship, because we're human and that's how we were designed.
It is. To your point about friendships coming and going, I mean, especially over the past couple of years, I've had a really difficult time letting go of some relationships, some that I have chosen to release and some that I have been released from. And it's hard sometimes in most relationships in life. If people are in our life and are close and stay there, it's mutual. I've had some confusing breakups, for lack of a better word. And I've had different seasons where I've wrestled with that. Have I done the right thing? Or what in the world just happened? Where did that person go? And I come back to the conclusion that the ones that I've released, I am grateful for seeing truth and the Lord protecting me from any harm moving forward. And I've also been able to apply that same concept to an understanding to the ones that were confusing to me. And I'm sure you've done this too in your life, where you're like, it's not about me. Sometimes it is, but sometimes it's not. And sometimes when people are no longer part of our lives for various reasons, I do believe the Lord is a lot of times bringing us into a different season.
Yeah.
Whether it's those people can't come with us or don't want to, or whatever the reason may be, I've just gotten to a place, and maybe it's just being in my mid 40s, that I'm like, I'm okay with that. If you're here, like, welcome. Like, grab your cup of coffee or glass of wine and let's hang out. If not, like, okay. My daughter and I did one of the stupid TikTok trends where it's like the Taylor Swift song, I Forgot That You Existed.
I saw it. Yeah.
But it's like, it is very therapeutic. I thought that, it would kill me, but it didn't. Like, forgot you existed. Like, shout out to Taylor. She's a master lyricist. The best poet of our time. Don't come at me about that. I'm just saying, if you're a Swiftie, great, move on. If you're not, move on. I don't want to hear about it. Okay. I think people come and people go. And I think getting to your mid 40s, keeping the friendships that are life-giving are important to me. And the ones that aren't, I'm like, okay, peace out. Like, I'm all set. And I don't say that in a mean way. I think that it's just important to keep your circle close. And, I've just learned the hard way through some friendships, and that's okay, because I've learned, and that's what matters most. But along the way, I've been able to hang on to people like you, and I have a good chokehold on you, so you're not going anywhere.
I'm not going anywhere.
You can't go anywhere.
It's so interesting though, because like even like in this season of like learning for me, one of the classes that I took at my other school was the dynamics of healthy relationships. And in that class, I learned so much about what a healthy relationship looks like. And I remember just like having these epiphanies. Yeah. Legit. I would turn over to my husband, like, because we work in the same like space. Like he works from home and I go to school from home. And so sometimes I would turn around like, babe, we've been doing this wrong the whole time. And so it's crazy. It's crazy. But a lot of it is like, it's learned behaviors. And, we learned we grab our coping mechanisms here and there, from like different experiences and different people. And I think, again, this is where like the ability to ebb and flow in relationships in your life, it takes an insane amount of grace. There's moments where you can confront stuff, but then there's other times where you just have to look the other way, or you just have
to. That's a hard lesson.
Yeah. And not necessarily like look away like you're condoning it, but
no.
It's like a sense where you can only be responsible for your decisions and for you. And so, taking on the responsibility of other people's dysfunction is like, that's a rat race that will never end, and it will exhaust you. It will suck the life out of you, and it just won't, you get nothing from it.
And I've learned to let things, I truly don't come from a place of defense anymore. I think it's been important for me to learn that if I know my heart and I share that with you, and I say to you, oh my gosh, this was my intent. My intention was this. I never ever wanted to hurt you. My intention was this, and here's why I did or said what I did. And I am so sorry if that hurt you, but that was not my intention. So if I said that to you and you walked away and said, oh, wow, like I didn't think of it that way. Of course I can have grace for you. And I have sorrow for your hurt feelings, but we can come to an understanding where you know my heart. That's a true friend. But if you walk away and say, no, you hurt me and I don't care what your intention was, I'm done.
Yeah.
Okay. I've had to wrestle with just letting that be okay. And when I say wrestle, I don't anymore. Like I'm at a place now where I'm not saying like, well, I know my heart, so screw you. It's not that, but it really is a place of like this acceptance of, if I did something wrong, then that is on me to apologize and fix it and own it. And I can't control whether or not you accept that. But if I didn't, and I explain that to you, if you're my true friend, I would hope you'd know my heart. If you don't, that's okay too. And so that's been a really tough lesson for me, but I think it's been an important one. And it's one that one that has brought a lot of peace. I think it's important that we share our heart and our intent, and we own our crap when we do something wrong.
Absolutely.
But it's okay if somebody's not going to have the grace for that or know your heart enough, then then maybe they're not a good enough friend to be in your life anyways. I mean, that's been tough, but I think important for me.
There's been a lot of moments in my life personally with relationships, because I've struggled with relationships. And it's me. It's
not you, it's me.
It's not you, it's me. It's most definitely me. But a lot of my insecurities from childhood growing up just bled right into my abilities to make friends. And everything I did was out of fear. That was my trauma response. Everything was fear this and fear that. And I was always fear informed a lot of my decisions. And so that's what made it hard for me to be a good friend, and hard for me to be friends with other people, to make friends with other people. And so
to be vulnerable.
Yeah, it was really hard. And so there was just different seasons of my life where I had to literally take a deep look inwardly. And so because it hurt, it was a sign to me that it needed time and attention. And for me, it needed time and attention and prayer, asking the Lord, why, what is it me? Is this something that, am I still hurting about something? Was, there's so much to be said about that. But I came to the conclusion that if it hurt, it wasn't something that I needed to just tuck away and be like, well, I'm not going to feel it, or let's go binge watch that TV show, or let's just go do whatever we got to do to get it off our minds. It was something where I felt like it hurt for a reason. So I needed to figure out what it was. And there takes a lot of owning and responsibility.
Totally.
And then there comes the times where we have to learn to forgive or learn to let go. And knowing that we'll probably never hear "I'm sorry" from the person who's caused or inflicted the most pain.
Yeah. I'm really glad you brought up forgiveness, because I think that is also something that over my life I've struggled with. And, going back to what we were taught, 7 times 70, forgive. Yeah. And I have had to learn what forgiveness actually means and what that looks like. And I think forgiveness is critical. We're called to forgive. Obviously, we believe Jesus died on the cross for our sins. And so if he can forgive even the worst offenses, then who are we not to as well? And I think forgiveness is critical for us and our hearts. What I have wrestled with, but I do believe, is that while forgiveness is important, reconciliation is not always where we are safe. I do think it's important for us and our peace that we can forgive and wish well, but also be protective of our family and our own hearts. And so that's been a really difficult thing to work through and understand, and be able honestly to explain to others as well.
Yeah.
It's a tough thing. And I think, most people, Christian or not, wrestle in some way with situations similar, where somebody's hurt you in such an aggressive and egregious way. And so what do you do with that? Do you grow in bitterness? Do you act out of anger? Or do you forgive? But does forgiveness have to look like relationship? And I don't think that it does.
So that is a tough one, because especially as Christians, we there's the scripture that talks about the ministry of reconciliation, that, in other words, we were designed to be reconciled, right? But again, this is where the grace of God comes in, because our human ability is limited. And to be able to do some of the things that only God can do. And I think that if there's a moment where he does bring reconciliation, it's going to have to be a moment where it happens by his working or his leading or his, instruction. But it is our responsibility to forgive. It's our responsibility to love, and to still hold those people in prayer and hold them close to the Lord, and, but I think there is a healthy process in which we need to, we have to walk through forgiveness, because if we're not careful, we'll carry things and we'll say, oh, I forgave them, but you've truly haven't let go, and you're still kind of holding on to those things, and you kind of like keep them in your pockets as like ammunition in case that situation ever comes back up again, and you're just like, well, I'm ready when you are, and so it's forgiveness.
Oh, you want to talk?
I know. Like, wait a minute. It's true. It's so true. The earrings come off and all that fun stuff, and you're just like, your childhood neighborhood starts showing up, and so you're just like
you ever see the memes that are like, I've got to decide which side of me is gonna respond to this, my Christian side or my hood side?
Yes. And
how I feel that so deeply.
It's true too. I mean, growing up in low key, no, not even low key, like growing up in the ghetto is just like high key. The ghetto informed a lot of my decisions. So sometimes I have to remind myself, okay, you don't have to let it out every single time, and so
sometimes it's fun,
just sometimes. But yeah, that need for like, I guess, true forgiveness is really is important, because it helps us decide, and it helps us like kind of categorize where we put people and where we put certain situations. And so it's definitely, yes, it's easy to say, I forgive them, but I'm not going back into a relationship with them. And that's actually probably easier than forgiving and then having to go back into a relationship. Right. And so there's that challenge. And the truth is that I will never say like, you have to forgive and you have to go back into reconciliation. I think that, again, there will be moments where God will lead us, like, and if that's the leading, then go with it. But if it's not, then you know what you have to do. And so,
no, that is a good, it is challenging.
It is.
But I think that there is an element of that, though, that in order to reconcile, it has to be, I think forgiveness can be one-sided. I don't think reconciliation can be. And so I think reconciliation requires vulnerability and humility.
Yeah. That's
but
true.
I think reconciliation, whether it's in a marriage or a friendship or with a family member or whomever, I think forgiveness we are called to. Reconciliation, well, you make some valid points, Nanette.
Yes.
Challenging the crap out of me. But don't you think it requires both? Humility is required.
Yes. So I'm going to get canceled by Katie, but listen, no. So it's
new
not
hashtag.
Necessarily, it's right.
The kids don't use hashtags anymore.
They don't.
I know, sorry.
It's a lost art form. But anyways, yes. Okay, let's get back.
Okay.
So I say that because I really do believe that, like, it's that, when we make statements like that, when we say, okay, I've forgiven this person, but I don't see reconciliation in my future. And that's fine. But that's a decision that you have sat with and you've prayed about. And it's not something that you're just like, yeah, you can forgive and not have to reconcile. Because I feel like every situation is so unique and different. I want to be clear that there are moments in my life where I've had to forgive people and I haven't been reconciled. Yeah. But then there are moments where I've forgiven and there was reconciliation. And so, but if I would have just taken the stance of like, oh yeah, I can forgive you, but we're not gonna be friends no more. Like, you are done.
I mean,
so it's a case by case situation.
Yeah. No,
and
it is.
I really do believe that there's no easy 5-step program. I'll never fully understand why people make the decisions that they make, but it's not my job to do that. It's just my job to figure out, okay, am I harboring some harsh feelings? Am I holding on to things that I don't need to hold on to? Mm-hmm. There was literally a situation in my life where I had such strong feelings.
What?
Very strong feelings about a relationship that I had. And I loved this I still love this person. And so but it was one of those things where it was just like every day I would get up and I would feel sick in my heart, literally feel sick in my heart. And I would sit at the edge of my bed and I would say, Lord, you love her and you love me. help me remember that. And so like, that's literally how I had to get through my days. And I'm so thankful that my heart stayed in a position where I was just like, I know that it's possible for reconciliation because God has done something so beautiful in our relationship. And I couldn't have done it if my heart was like, I forgive you, but we're not going to be friends, you know?
Yeah.
And so like,
I feel attacked.
No, but you've thought about this and you've prayed and you've mulled over this, you've considered this. And so
listen, yes, I have thought, do not let the door hit you in your behind. And I'd love to use a different word, but I don't think everybody's ready for the fact that I also have the mouth of a sailor when I want to, because I do love Jesus, but I also love wine.
Amen.
So no, but listen, where I'm at is Lord called me to forgive. That let's leave it at that.
Let's leave it at that.
No,
we'll put a pin in it.
Listen, I'm slightly regretting having you on and talking about this, but I'm just kidding. I'm kidding. Yes. No, this is why, but I love this. And I actually, like in the intro for this whole podcast, I literally said being challenged is part of it. It's like whether we agree or disagree. I don't disagree with you. I don't like it. There are certain people I never want to have to deal with again. Yeah. Ever.
Hey, I'll be honest, I didn't like it either. Like I really didn't. And there are moments where like, I think that, and I want to say this carefully, because there were moments where I felt challenged, super challenged in just saying, like, I forgive this person and I've moved on. And I have little relationships that I had to forgive someone and I had to move on, and they're not really a part of my life anymore. Yeah. And it's okay. But that wasn't every situation. And the common denominator was that I was hurt in every single one of those situations, but not every situation turned out to be the final product wasn't that. It was like, I forgive you, and then I'm moving on with my life. Yeah. Some of them were, I forgive you, and then I still feel this strong sense for reconciliation. Yeah. And so I had to really wrestle with that, because obviously the other person wasn't feeling that. And so I had to like figure out, in some cases they were, but like I had to figure that out. And I think this is the part of Christianity that we don't talk about, because
it sucks.
It does. It absolutely does. But I think this is the part of Christianity that matters. And it's not about being like, look at me, I reconciled with this person, but it's saying, I want to focus more on the fact that every single morning for months at a time, I had to sit there and give it over to God, because I was literally sick to my heart. And that is the aspect of Christianity that we don't talk about. That's the aspect of a faith walk where we just like, okay, God, I don't really want to deal with this right now. I don't want to talk about it right now. I just don't want to, just can't be bothered, Yeah. Yeah. And this is the part of Christianity that for me is the most important. Like, how can we constantly, daily come before him with all of that we have, even our relationships, and say, am I done with that? Like, am I done with that? Am I done with that? And I believe one day he's going to be like, if it is, like, yeah, you're done. And then you can release it with peace, like in your situation.
I think the important part of that, and the important piece, and, something I have to accept, just kidding, is truly is forgiveness with the opportunity and the door open for reconciliation if that were to be presented as an opportunity and a door that I should be willing to walk through if I'm actually walking in forgiveness. I'd love to sit here and be like, no, I forgive them. And if they knocked on my door tomorrow, I'd welcome them in with open arms because, girl, I'd probably lock every door and hide under the rug. Like, no, thank you. No, thank you. But, there's a big piece of that and of me that operates out of fear based on experiences and life experience. And, listen, if somebody has been unsafe in your life, it is a challenge to even consider welcoming them back in any capacity. So
absolutely.
I'll leave it at this. Do I think that the Lord can work a miracle in any situation? Yes. And if reconciliation is on the table as a response to somebody coming with some humility and both parties coming to the table and saying, okay, let's move forward and not look back. I am called to that, and I might go kicking and screaming, but I will commit here that I would do it. Freaking
No,
like it.
and
And I'm bringing a bottle of wine with me.
exactly.
But I don't, that is just
Bring
what it's going to look like. Okay. So
no, it's,
fine.
I think that's, yeah, that's great. Like I'm, you know me, I'm going to challenge you just a little bit, you know? And so we probably are going to have a ton of women watching this and thinking to themselves, does that mean me? You know? And so, and I think it's different for everyone. I think
let's
it
play
takes
a guessing game. Who thinks I'm talking about them?
Right?
Write it in the comments. Just kidding. Don't do that.
Don't write it in the comments. But it's just one of those things where you kind of have to like just, you know, you have to walk through. And in my household, when the kids are fighting and they're disagreeing on things, I always tell them, you have two choices. You can react or you can respond. And the truth is that when you react, it tells a lot about your healing journey. But when you take the time to actually respond to people, it shows that you've kind of like sat with this you've given it the time and the attention that it needs, and you're ready to like, you know, address it. That's why it's 70 times 7. Because it's literally like every time you remember, or like you drive by the spot, or you see something, or you smell the smell, or you have the experience, and all of a sudden you're just like, it just comes all flooding back.
Yeah.
And so that's that. I got to forgive again.
Right.
You know?
Well, and I think as moms and as, you know, we are fiercely protective of our cubs, of our tribe, of our family. And so
I'm very
operating out of
over
fear
my babies.
is not, operating out of fear is not healthy. And we know that, but I do like, there's so many layers to relationship, whether it's family, friends.
Yeah.
And so I think at a baseline, sometimes the type of forgiveness that we're called to requires us to step outside of our guttural, natural human instinct to protect and retreat.
Yeah.
And I went through a season in college where I went, talk about fight or flight. I was like very meek and mild as a child. Then I got to high school and that changed a little. I got to college and I just went the other way. And if you knew me in college, you don't need to comment either. Okay. But, let's not go there.
Stay out of the comment section.
But then after that season, I like retreated again. I've gone through these ebbs and flows in life, and I'm just coming out of now the season where I dug a hole and brought my family with me and was like, this is all that matters. Yeah. And I do think there's a time for that. I do think there's a season for that. And I do think as a response to outside factors in life, sometimes that's necessary. I do. I think to your point, coming out of that is also important. But I think we are actively coming out of that type of season where it was necessary for us to hunker down. It was necessary to preserve and protect and regrow and rebuild some things. And I'm thankful for that. There was some darkness in that season, but I'm thankful for what the Lord used that season to do for our unit, which is like we do have a really strong bond in our family of 8. Yeah. And that, you know, when we first got married, my husband bought all these books about blended families, and he was like going to read, he was reading or, you know, going to, because we don't really read.
Stop.
He planned, we read the back of a few of the books, and they all said
and then you were like, I'm good. I got everything I need.
Skimmed the chapter titles. Maybe that's been our problem. Anyways, one of the things that we learned in that season through all of our reading was that it takes a typical blended family. They say scientifically been proven or psychologically been proven. See, if I read, I'd probably know that. Yeah. 7 years for a blended family to feel like a unit. Wow. And we were like, whatever, try 7 months. Like, we got this in the bag. We got 5 little kids. We love each other, you know, like we got it. Yeah. I think at about year 8, after coming out of a severe attack on our family, is when it all started to come together. So it really did take that long. And that's not to say we didn't love each other. That's not to say we didn't have great moments, but there are challenges that exist in that dynamic that, I mean, again, for another episode, but thankful for the darkness. I'm thankful for even the, right? When we've gone through the darkness, and this goes back to even how we started this conversation, the light, we can appreciate the light so much more. And so I think looking back and seeing how the Lord used that season to bring us even closer is, and not just my husband and I, our whole family, the 7 of us until Ruby. And then when Ruby came, it was just like this, the most sweet beautiful, miraculous little ball of fire.
Yes.
That is just like this like beautiful relationship all of us have with and for and because of her. But like the 8 of us truly have like this special unit, and I'm grateful for that. So all of that to say, the dark season that was so difficult that we've kind of been talking about a little bit, that I apparently have to forgive, was used for good anyways. So there.
Yeah. No, and it's true. I think though, it's you absolutely win, hands down. But it reminds me of a song by Corey Asbury, and he says like everything belongs. Like, and in the song he literally talks about like the disappointments and the hurts and the pains, but then also the joy and the growth that comes from all those things. And it really goes to show us that we shouldn't cancel out just whole seasons of our lives.
Yeah.
We literally learn to embrace those seasons because everything belongs. Everything is a part of our journey.
Right. What's the verse? He uses all things for the good of those who love him, and to work all things together for the good. And you know, that's actually a verse. Do you know the exact verse that is? Like what book?
Oh, that's Romans 8:28. Yeah. I had to think about it for a second.
Okay. Well, that's one of the verses growing up. It's like, or a lot of Christians even misuse that and say, but you know, supposedly he uses all things for good. And that's not what it says, right? He uses all things for good.
The common misconception is for my good, right? And, and it's like, he works all things together for my good. And the truth is that he works all things together for the good. And
right. It's for the good. But in other words, I think it's important to understand that the good is maybe not in our piece to the puzzle, might not seem good, but it's getting used in a way that is for the good of those.
It'll be good for someone else, but like it's not going to feel good for us.
Right. And that's hard to, again,
it is
full circle is the challenge of walking in faith. And I'm so grateful to have a friend like you who continues to challenge me, even though when we stop recording, I might have to give you an earful on that. Anyway,
I'm here for it.
I know. No, I sincerely, it's walking in faith is not always easy. And I think that's part of what drew me to starting this podcast and launching it with somebody as gracious and challenging as you, because you're not challenging. That came out from, but you knew what I meant.
Yes.
But that's the beauty of these conversations, right? It's like, well, we could just sit here and talk about all the things we know and how amazing and fun and wonderful it is, but it's not. It sucks sometimes. It's hard to be a Christian. It's hard to walk in faith. It's hard to believe, and it's hard to choose to do the hard things, whether it's to believe or to forgive or to reconcile or fill in the blank. And it's hard to believe he is good when the good doesn't come our way. And I think those are the hard conversations that we need to have, not because we have the answers, but so that hopefully the people listening or watching are like, okay, like I don't feel crazy because I have these questions. Like, it's okay. That's part of the human experience. And with people in our lives, like the relationship we are both so blessed to have, or I'm blessed to have. I don't want to speak for you, but
I am too. No, I am very blessed to have you in my life.
It's important that we can do this because without it, we're just, what are we doing? What are we even doing?
Yeah.
Without this podcast, what is anyone doing? right?
Yeah.
I'm just kidding.
You know, it's one thing I know about you is that you are not going to polish anything to make it any easier than what it needs to be. You know what I'm saying? Like,
I don't know if I should say thank you or
no, you should, because you don't beat around the bush. You're very honest. You're very raw. And that's actually one of the most, like, that's one of the biggest things I've appreciated about our friendship is that you didn't sugarcoat anything. I'll never forget. And I have to share this story because it's so funny,
good.
but I'll never forget.
Oh no, I'm
you
scared.
were like, and no, it's good. It's good. I'll never forget like where you were like in the thick of grief, right? This was after your miscarriage. And this was right before Ruby. And I remember that you were like, you were going through it and you were you were struggling. And I happened to be in New York for something because, you know, now I'm in sunny Florida. But
yes. You left me.
I happened to be in New York for something and, you know, we met up for our dinners like we always do when I come. And I remember us sitting there talking and you were telling me that you were going through a book and you were just like, but it's like, it's not what I want to hear. And I was just like, I know. And I'm like, but it's probably really good and it's probably going to help. And you were just like, it's not what I want to hear. It's not what I want to read. I'm just not interested. And I remember you slide the book over to me and you're like, you can read it if you want to.
Give me the probably because little secret here, I don't really read. I was an English major. I read Cliff's Notes the whole time and I still graduated summa cum laude. Shout out to Nazareth University. I don't know what you're doing, but I have a degree and no education. Just kidding.
So I remember you slid the book across to me on the counter. You were like, you can read it if you want to.
Yep.
And I was just like, but that's the dynamic that you and I have is that, you know, that you could literally like, you can sit there and say, I'm not reading this book. And you can read it if you want to. And I did. I took the book home and I read it.
And you told me in that season how critical that book was for you. So I look at that and I'm like, okay, Lord, I see you. You had that pastor tell me to read that book so that I wouldn't read it to pass it on to Nanette. And that's okay.
I still gave you tidbits of the book. You just didn't know about it. Like every time we would like talk and have a conversation and I would share something with you that was like so deep and like inspirational, but it actually just came from the book.
I'll keep sliding things your way when I'm back in school and be like, just let me know what's important.
I think that your sense of honesty and just your ability to not sugarcoat anything it's refreshing to me.
Well, thank you.
Because
I will keep being disappointing.
In a world of people who are always trying to cover stuff up or like even you have those people in your life who they'll share with you, you know, that they went through something, but it's after they've already like overcome and they've like gone through it and you had no idea they were suffering the whole time. And it's just like, you know, we weren't called to that kind of life. We were called to literally bear each other's burdens and do this together. And I'm honored to have the opportunity to do that with you. And I'm super thankful to have you in my life.
I'm so thankful for you. And I'm thankful that you joined me on this crazy ridiculousness that we're calling a podcast. And I'm
here for it. I'm here for all of it.
Like if anybody is still listening, like God bless you. We're going to have to do a follow-up episode. Like, so what happened? Are you still friends? Just kidding. No, I love you so much. Thank you for being here. Thank you for sharing your heart, but mostly thank you for putting up with me.
Anytime. I'm here for it. All of it. Love you too.
Love you.